Good morning. This is the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Friday, November 13th. Looking at precipitation over the past week, on the left shows the season-ending event for just about all areas. Precipitation encompassing the entire Great Basin, up in Idaho and Wyoming, where season-ending events have previously already occurred. That's just nailing the final nails in the coffin, but more significant precipitation for the southern half of Utah into the Arizona Strip and into much of Nevada. See percent of normal precipitation on the right. You can see snow fall and snow cover in the past 72 hours. Still some significant amounts of snow across the higher terrain of Idaho, western Wyoming. You can see those shades of yellow to orange, anywhere from 6 to 12, and even pockets of 18 inches, and that extends down into the Uintas and the northern Wasatch, and lesser amounts across the higher terrain of Nevada. There was snowfall previous, though, over the past 7 days, especially with last weekend's event. And on the right-hand side, you can see the snow cover, not deep yet in most areas, but up here in the lighter shades, anywhere from about 8 to 12 inches across the higher terrain of Idaho, a little bit more across western Wyoming, maybe 2 to 3 feet of snow cover in the higher terrain. But look at the extent of the light snow cover down in Utah, all the way down into the Arizona border and part of the higher terrain of the Arizona Strip, and a good portion of Nevada as well. So we usually don't have this much extensive snow cover until we get later into December. So we went from summer to winter with quite a quick swing. Looking at fuel projections, the forecast 10-hour fuels, you can still see that things have dried out quite a bit in areas that didn't get as much precipitation. The southern third or southern quarter of Nevada and has dried out quite a bit in southwest Utah and parts of the Arizona Strip as well. On the 10-hour fuels, and that's normal if you don't get precipitation after a few days. The 100 hours, other than this pocket down here in the gold in southern Nevada in single digits, everything else in the yellow is anywhere from 11 to 15%, and of course getting up towards 20% in the green. So those 100-hour fuels quite moist, obviously not supportive of large natural fire, but could burn under the right conditions if your 10-hour fuels are dry enough and in the duff in some areas. Now, the 1,000-hour fuels, of course, take longer to respond to deeper moisture. So you can see this golden area here, still in the upper single digits in the 1,000-hour fuels, low to mid-teens in the yellow. So in some of these areas, as long as they don't have snow cover, probably could get some good burning done in the timber. Looking at the larger picture of drought, despite the recent precipitation, if we're going for the past few months, you can see how extensive the drought is, centered by this exceptional drought, the highest category. We usually see this maybe once or twice a decade, already shaping up across central, or actually much of Utah in the higher terrain and into parts of Nevada. The extreme drought is covering a much larger portion of Utah and Nevada, and even a little pocket up here in Idaho. So we'll see how the winter progresses and if we can alleviate some of this, or whether some of this will get worse. And what will govern that is a look at our climatic pattern. This is La Nina. You can make out the map here. This is Mexico. This is the South American coast. And these are cooler than normal ocean waters, now building off Ecuador and pushing into the Pacific. This is a classic La Nina, moderate to maybe approaching strong by the time we get towards Thanksgiving and Christmas. And that does change the storm track quite a bit. In which way, you might ask, and let's take a look at that. In a pretty moderate to strong El Nino, the storm track, the jet stream in the purple here, gets arced up into Alaska and then comes down into Canada. Below this area, you're under high pressure and warmer than drier conditions. The subtropical Pacific jet stream also gets pushed further north. So these two jets combine to give wetter than normal conditions across the Pacific Northwest, maybe into far northern California. And then as it progresses down through here, brings cooler temperatures, typically cold storms with low snow levels, all the way down through Idaho, Wyoming, and into far northern Utah. And then typically, as soon as you get maybe south of the Highway 50 or I-80 corridor, it gets progressively warmer and drier than normal. So for the southern third or southern half of Utah and Arizona and Nevada, looking at drier and warmer than normal conditions across those areas for much of the upcoming winter, which, looking at that previous drought map, shows that things could get even drier there as we go into the winter and maybe the start of next fire season. We shall see. The satellite imagery definitely shows that La Nina pattern. You have that big high pressure out here, cold storms coming out of the north and northwest into the Pacific Northwest, missing the most of California except for the northern portion. And this next batch of clouds will be moving into the Great Basin, already moving into Idaho, will push into the northern third or northern half of Nevada and Utah later today, tonight, and into tomorrow. Much colder, more rain, and probably more snow than anything else. So let's take a look at that. Here's the upper level map on the left for this afternoon or evening. You can see the area in the green is where clouds and precipitation is expected again across the northern half of the geographic area, again from about Highway 50 on northwards. Dispersion on the right-hand side, the areas in white, excellent dispersion. Further north you go, the more it's limited only by the cloud cover and lack of mixing, but the winds should be pretty good. You see on the left here, transport winds quite enhanced here, 25, 35, maybe even 40 miles per hour. Mixing heights vertically excellent in all areas as you would expect in low pressure. On Saturday, looking at that storm system that was occurring late Friday is moving out, but a new batch of moisture and precipitation moving back into the northern half of the Great Basin. So especially across Nevada and Idaho, more precipitation. Dispersion, you can see excellent in the white and pretty good in the yellow, marginal in the red. Probably because of the light winds through here is why it's marginal, but the winds do increase as you go further north. The vertical mixing overall, other than some pockets of isolated valleys, should be pretty good. On Sunday, this continued stream of moisture continues across the Pacific Northwest, far northern California, and into the northern quarter of Nevada, Utah, and much of Idaho. So again, a mixed bag of dispersion, limited up here in the north only because of the cloud cover. You can see the transport winds here on the left, where the strongest winds are and where the lightest winds are. Vertical mixing, other than poor areas in the dark purple, areas in the green to yellow indicate at least 2,000 to 4,000 feet above ground level for your dispersion. So overall, not too bad. The Utah Clearing Index, also used by some agencies here in Utah as we go Friday, Saturday to Sunday. The oranges to red, yellows to oranges to reds offers excellent dispersion. So we see a lot of that Friday and Saturday. We see decreasing in many areas on Sunday. 3-day precipitation totals, you can see them through here again, north of the Highway 50 corridor. Some moderate to locally heavy amounts here in the Wasatch areas in the light blue, 1 to 2 inches of precipitation. That could be 10 to 20 inches of snow, and that extends into the higher terrain of Wyoming and into Idaho especially. So their snowpack is going to grow. Also into the Rubies a bit and the Peacocks, but very little precip once you get from Ely southwards. On the extended on Monday, you can see that high pressure builds in briefly across the areas. We should get considerably warmer and drier on Monday. Ventilation index on the right, areas in the yellow and white, probably good places to burn. As we go into Tuesday, winds pick up ahead of the next storm system. You can see excellent overall dispersion, especially from Nevada into western Utah, pushing that stable air out. But we'll be watching more precip coming into the western portion of the Great Basin on Tuesday. See how that plays out. As we go into precipitation days 4 and 5, this is as we go into Monday night through Wednesday night, you can see light amounts here, 1/10 of an inch or so, 1/4 of an inch, maybe locally higher amounts up in Idaho, and that'll be mostly in the form of snow. Now, as we go into Wednesday, you can see a series of storms. Again, typical La Nina pattern coming in out of the northwest, not really digging down into California or southern portions of the Great Basin. One batch here into northern Utah, another one approaching from the Pacific Northwest, excellent overall dispersion on the right. And on Thursday, this next storm system brings clouds and moisture everywhere. You see these areas in the green. Again, excellent overall dispersion, especially in areas that are cloud-free, southern half of the Great Basin. Additional precipitation days 6 and 7. Again, light to moderate amounts. This would be about 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch or 1 to 3 inches of snow in most areas. Maybe local pockets of 4 to 6 inches of snow up here in the central Idaho mountains and maybe in the Tetons, and getting pummeled in the Pacific Northwest. The 8 to 14 day outlook shows cooler than normal temperatures across much of the west, especially the western portion of the Great Basin. Near normal precipitation, so for the middle of November, that typically is on the wetter side, but that drier signal, again, typical of La Nina that we saw off that diagram, continuing across southern Utah, far southeast Nevada, and into Arizona. This concludes our briefing. Have a great day. Next smoke briefing this coming Monday.